Thank you very much. I'm Suba Churchill. I'm an activist, and I've been an activist for the last 28 years, and still counting. And if there is anyone who others would wish to retire, maybe in the sector is Suba Churchill, but I refuse to retire. The Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, Your Excellencies, present and former governors present, and other dignitaries, it is my pleasure to speak on behalf of a sector that I've served for a number of years and to show solidarity with some of the sentiments that have been expressed here. I've had the privilege to be part of the team that worked on the Constitution of Kenya, sitting as delegate number 463 at the Bomas Constitutional Conference in 2003 and 2004, and not only sat as a delegate, but co-chaired the Technical Committee on Citizenship and the Bill of Rights. And so my submissions here today are going to be based on the provisions of the Constitution. One of the provisions of our Constitution, under Article 38(2), is that every citizen has a right to free, fair, and regular elections based on universal suffrage. And that is provided under the Bill of Rights. Article 35 of the same Constitution tells us that every person has a right to access information held by the state, and more so when that information is required to protect a right or fundamental freedom. What am I trying to say? That those who have made it look as if asking for the opening of the server is like extracting somebody's tooth without the benefit of anesthetics should know that accessing information held by the server is a fundamental right protected of the Constitution. And so, irrespective of how the Supreme Court ruled, Article 35 of the Constitution remains operational, and any Kenyan at any point in time has a right to demand access to information held by the state of its agencies, including the IBC, to certify themselves that indeed their right to free and fair elections, as provided for under Article 38, was protected, and that the results that the IBC announced were as they ought to be. I know there are friends who have told us that the 2022 elections were the freest, the fairest. But as one who has observed elections for the African Union in 28 African countries so far, I will tell you that there cannot be free and fair elections if the vote before it is cast is different from the vote after it is cast. The figures that we have been treated to here indicate that the votes before they were cast multiplied for some candidates after they were cast. And therefore, the results as announced by the IBC on the presidential vote do not meet the requirements of Article 86 of the Constitution that requires that no matter what method is used in conducting the vote, they must be verifiable, they must be accurate, and all this seems to be missing in this process. Every time this discussion crops up with my colleagues in the sector, I ask them one simple question. Kwamba juzi tuliona watu wakienda kwa shamba la mwingine wakaiba kondoo. Ikiwa huyo mtu ambaye alibiwa kondoo anashuku watu fulani na aseme juzi nimepoteza kondoo kadhaa, mamia ya kondoo, na nashuku kwamba kuna moja iko kwa hii nyumba, the solution is simple. Open the door, let the owners of the kondoo certify themselves that indeed you are not holding any of the lost. That is the stand of the civil society. That there can be no reconciliation without justice. And there can be no justice without truth. That truth can only be ascertained not by my friend Wasonga going to subject this data, but by the holders of the information making that information available, because we'll end up confusing the masses. Because your lecturers will come up with their own figures, other people will also come with their own. Let those who are holding the information make it available pursuant to Article 35 of the Constitution. That is the stand of the civil society. We have been told in Article 88 of the Constitution that the IBC is one of the constitutional commissions. As one who participated in writing this Constitution, I've looked at the provisions relating to the functions of the IBC. And I think, and I want to suggest, that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is too important a commission to be established just like all the other constitutional commissions. As an election observer, I know for a fact that there are three types of commissions. Ours falls under the constitutional commissions. Then there is the mixed model and the government model. It is my submission that what is in contention in this matter is not the panel. It is the formula being used to establish the commission. And I want to urge us to admit that our country and our state of democratic development is still too backward to let the president and incumbent president run the show by presiding over the appointment of everybody else who contributes people into the panel that sets up the commission. I want to remind us that in 2002, the only reason we had free and fair and credible elections that met the frameworks as set out in Article 86 is when we had different actors, critical stakeholders, saying this will be our representative in the commission. So what we are calling for as a civil society is a review of the method of setting up the IBC. And we are saying that whatever is in this constitution is not cast on stone. That it is not about the panel, it is about relooking at Article 88 of the Constitution and saying this formula is wrong. And Dr. Wasonga will agree with me that as our mathematics teachers used to say, when you get the formula wrong, the answer can never be right. We will never get it right until we get the formula of establishing, not reconstituting, establishing the commission. Because the commission is the one that registers citizens as voters. It's the one that delimits boundaries of constituencies and wards. It's the one that updates the voters' roll. It's the one that oversees the resolution of disputes of nominations. It's the same one that presides over referenda and elections. We are saying this commission must be treated differently. And we have examples in that same constitution. The manner in which, for example, the Revenue Allocation Commission is established, where there is consultation, where people, stakeholders have representatives, is perhaps some of the formula we need to borrow and bring into the establishment of the IBC. Lastly, as a representative of the sector, I would be failing in my responsibility if I don't raise this. Way back in 2013, a new law was passed, the Public Benefit Organizations Act, that was supposed to repeal the NGO Coordination Act and establish an enabling environment for the civil society to thrive and make their contribution in a socio-economic development. That law that was passed by Parliament in 2012, assented to by former President Mwai Kibaki on 13 February 2013, is yet to become operational because successive regimes have refused to operationalize it. We are seeing on the other side people who called us names, said we are evil society. I'm not surprised that day in, day out, they celebrate the contributions made by Kenyans in the diaspora, but never mention the significant contribution that this sector makes to the economy, creating jobs and ensuring that those who are underprivileged, those who are underserved, get some of the services that government cannot provide. Lastly, I agree with those who are saying that hata kama kuna majadiliano inaendelea kwa kikao fulani, moto pia lazima iwe inawaka nje. That's how it works. That's how it works. Without pressure. And some of the things they don't admit, you know, when people are complaining about salary, what they are not admitting is that 2 weeks of mass action, they cost them the money they would have used to pay. They'll not tell you that. But these are the realities. We need to cost them another 2 weeks so that those civil servants can join us in the demonstrations. This is how revolutions happen. Revolutions don't happen when everybody is paid on time. We like it. We like it. Some of us in the activist side of the world like it when everybody is not comfortable. So, Baba, another 2 rounds of mandamano. And all civil servants who are not yet paid will join you in the struggle for change. One thing people who are close to you may not tell you, and which people say outside, is that you don't seem to have the ruthlessness that is required in this struggle. That, you know, my grandfather was a well-known partaker of traditional brew, busa. But he would not entertain a fly around his calabash. You are still entertaining people who have defected, people who have crossed over, people who have betrayed the struggle. By now, there should have been a by-election ongoing in Kisumu for the Senate. By now, we should be having a by-election in Langata. People are saying you don't have the ruthlessness. This struggle requires some level of ruthlessness. And it is not that there is no shortage of people who can lead in those constituencies. Bondo constituencies are sure bets. What are we waiting with that? Baba, you need some level of ruthlessness in this struggle. Because if people are aiming to kill you, why not kill them first? That is what the struggle is about. I'm glad to see my colleagues, Kenya University Students Organization. I want to tell you, I'm the founder chairman of the Kenya University Students Organization. And when we were founding it in 1995, some of us were expelled. Then we became clever. We say, if you are thrown out through the door, find a way of coming back through the window. So when we went to the Register of Societies, we say, you in particular, we know you are notorious. You have been expelled. You are not a student. We went and registered in a driving school and came back and say, now you see, we are students in a driving school. Those are some of the creativity that we need. Asanteni sana.
Vijana munataka nani? Baba. Na wazee munataka nani? Baba. Hadi wa mama munataka nani?
Sisi ni wa baba. I hope my brother Suba will not mind me sharing the following. I want to share with Baba 2 things about Suba as he greets him. So Brother Suba introduced himself as an activist. But at the end, he also indicated that he was a founder, student leader of the university. But even more importantly, he is now the national coordinator of Civil Society Reference Group. He was out of town when he heard this session was on, by his own pressure and the pressure of those he represents, he traveled overnight to be here today. So, Kevin, please, you're the second last person, so let's make it precise. And I have reserved the last chance in this session, the last chance, to those men and women who are in the front line represented by MDD. Yes?
I'll be taking you on. Been holding on for so long. I've been waiting. Time for the real time.
Kwanza kabisa ningependa kutambua wale viongozi wa rende la Azimio ambao wako hapa, viongozi wetu ambao pia ni viongozi wa vyama vya kisiasa. Ninaona hapa wamejaa, wamefurika furifuri. Viongozi wetu ambao wamechaguliwa kutoka katika bunge zetu za juu na pia za gatuzi, na muona spika wetu wa Nairobi Bwana Ngondi pia ako hapa. Viongozi wa sekta mbalimbali wa Kenya wenzangu, mabibi na mabwana, hamujambo? Bwana Yesu Kristo asifiwe. Salamu alaikum. So I want to begin by really appreciating the organizers of this session who considered it wise and very thoughtful to have conversations from Kenyans around the ongoings in their country. When we received this phone call that came to us yesterday evening, we were very glad because this really is an exercise of Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya that gives sovereign power to the people. In addition to that, we have very many legislative proposals that support public participation. So we have come here in very big and huge numbers to participate. And if a similar call comes from Kenya Kwanza, we will as well attend and make our voice to count. I am speaking on behalf of an organization called County Governance Watch, whose sole purpose is to watch over devolved governments of Kenya, really by presenting proposals and recommendations that strengthen and enhance devolution in the counties. In addition to this, we engage a lot in issues around leadership and governance. And so elections, peace and security really form the core of the work that we do. And so in the Middle-East, we have organizations that are from, let me say, across the country, because beyond County Governance Watch, we engage with a network called the Peace Actors Forum that is represented by Madam Leah Kimathi. I think she's seated somewhere there. And also stakeholders from Madare, Kibra, and other informal settlements that we engage with. They have sent me here with a 4-page document that I am not going to read, but I want to summarize it in brief. The first issue is, of course, taking note of the fact that our elections are necessarily standing as a trigger for violence, crisis, and dilemma. And this is happening because, as a country, we have failed to really look at the far greater challenges that the country is facing. And so if you look at very many platforms that have been presented to us, very many conversations that have taken place in this country, there are lots of unfinished businesses. And that is why, even as we stand in this very non-partisan platform, we want to appreciate Baba. Because I keep telling people that if Baba told us that kulikuwa na mamluki pahali, na kuna watu walikataa, na akasema nimewaona wameingia na mlango huu na msipowazuia na kuwaziba watatoka na mlango hii ingine. After a few weeks, what happened? The faces of the Mamlukis tulionyeshwa, waliangazwa. If Baba says that there is an issue with this server, if Baba says that there is an issue with this server, si basi tutaweka server pia wawe mamluki. Na baadaye kutakuwa na sehemu na pahali ambapo ukweli wa huo server utajulikana. And so we take note of processes such as the Kenya National Dialogue and Reconciliation processes of 2008 that raised issues. 4 among those issues: constitutional and legal institutional reforms, land reforms, tackling poverty and inequality, tackling unemployment, especially among young people, and of course cross-cutting issues such as consolidating national cohesion and unity while addressing transparency, accountability, and impunity. As a network and an agency, we are convinced that the political process that we currently have, especially bordering on largely the reasons why we are here, focus on humiliating competitors, critics, and those who do not agree with the views, rather than building consensus and strategies for solving our country's issues. So we take note of progressive processes that have taken place to try and deal with some of those concerns, but we are also convinced that the people, the economy, eradication of suffering and promoting dignity are not a preserve of politics and therefore of governments. Progressive voices have to be given their place at those particular tables. And that is why beyond the Agenda 4 issues, the 3 concerns that I have raised are concerns that are bedeviling Kenyans today. Consequently, and despite being detailed in past review processes, including the Kenya and NEPAD APRM process reports, the Justice Waki and Krigler commissions, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission reports, the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission TJRC report that of course led to the 2007-2008 Kenya National Dialogue and Reconciliation process, the Vision 2030 document itself, and much more closely, we take note of progress and regress that were made in the 2017 Joint Parliamentary Select Committee. And one agenda that not so many of us have talked about here today is the Building Bridges to Unity process that was quashed by our courts. These, ladies and gentlemen, are opportunities that give us the privilege, therefore, to make progressive steps that give us platforms to be able to exercise progressive aspects that therefore address the conflicts and the challenges that Kenyans are facing. The second broad conceptual challenge that we submit to Azimio today is the increasing feeling of hopelessness among the citizenry due to being disempowered and indeed the lack of organizing, lack of an objective and consistent voices among the citizen groups. Must it be the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga who will stand between the injustices that Kenyans are facing and the progressive steps that Kenyans require from their governments? The answer is no. And therefore we are hoping that in all these additional processes that are being undertaken, including the latest, which is the bipartisan process, that this degree of helplessness that Kenyans are facing is going to be addressed, and that it is neither the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga and his fellow leaders and the government, but that Kenyans will begin to have the conscious thinking and understanding that we have a responsibility that has been given to us by our Constitution to exercise certain sovereignty. Therefore, in finishing, what are our 6 proposals to Azimio and to the bipartisan committee? Number 1, we are proposing that we need to restructure the executive to dignify and institutionalize the opposition, to perform its oversight role effectively within a presidential system. Now, this memorandum explains the pros and cons of a presidential system, the benefits that Kenya has been able to accrue between the presidential and even the parliamentary system that we enjoyed its stint a few years ago. The Constitution of Kenya, therefore, provides that elections, as Suba Churchill rightfully said, will be held every 5 years. But it also establishes an electoral management body, otherwise called the IEBC, Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. The mandate and the functions of that commission is to conduct free, fair, transparent, and accountable elections for Kenyans. In exercise of that mandate, Kenyans vote for 6 positions that, of course, interest different contestants. Going by past electoral experiences, we have been told that winning the presidency means getting everything and losing everything if you lose and fail to become the president. This is happening both at the national level, regional levels, county levels, but even at an individual level. When you run for president, like the 4 candidates who ran for office and did not lose it, where do we take you to? What does that mean for us as a people? And therefore, we are proposing that we need to begin to have a conversation as candid as is possible to review this structure that, therefore, will be able to open up certain spaces for us to be able to look at how we can be able to strengthen accountability, transparency, and indeed integrity of various agencies. The second issue that we are raising, devolution. So strengthening devolution, institutional performance, and governance. We have seen, and as a network, we have undertaken an analysis of the promises that were made by both Azimio la Umoja and also Kenya Kwanza on devolution and the benefits that would be that would accrue to Kenyans with this. We are sorry to say that Kenya Kwanza government has failed to live by the dreams of Kenyans and the prospects that have been given to us through the Constitution of Kenya insofar as devolution is concerned. And therefore, we are proposing that, 1, funds that have been contained by the national government that are supposed to go to county governments be released, and that the bipartisan process that has been proposed begins to have a candid conversation around how we can be able to forestall the challenges that come with the division of revenue allocation. This goes beyond just Parliament, but also looking at the various constitutional commissions and also the functions as are detailed in Schedule 4 Schedule 4 of our Constitution of Kenya that basically narrates the functions of both national and county governments. Why are we saying this? We say this because we have also noted a trend at which the national government, particularly the Kenya Kwanza government, is stifling devolution, not just because of judiciary mechanisms and concerns, but indeed even regaining and reclaiming functions that are supposed to be done by county governments, and they are currently being both financed and executed and implemented by national government. If we fail to do this, ladies and gentlemen, therefore what will happen? For the first time, as one of my former speakers has said, we are noticing a trend where public servants have not been paid. County governments, various service delivery sectors have actually threatened to go on strike. Are we saying that it is the demonstrations that are going to get us back to the drawing and talking table? The answer is both yes and no. Why? Because we have to exert pressure. So there are people who will exert that pressure. And we also have to have conversations that are progressive and transformational. As I head towards finishing, the third issue is bringing a closure to the 2017 and 2022 general elections and making elections credible, accountable, and acceptable. We are here because we have been given data. What does this data mean to you? And I want to echo the words of Suba Churchill because they are also indicated in this memorandum. Article 35 of the Constitution gives any citizen of the Republic of Kenya the right of access to information held by the state. If we fail to exercise that right and not waiting for Baba Mheshimiwa Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, we want to see as many petitions to institutions of government pushing for opening up of the servers. It doesn't have to be Raila Amolo Odinga. As an individual, you can do a petition. As a network of family members, you can do a petition. And so beyond this meeting, I am requesting us to go out there and seek for petitions, letters, and questions that will ensure that if the server has the answer to what ails Kenya today, let the servers be opened. We have been told that there is no mechanism. There is a mechanism in Article 35. But if we fail to exercise that right, what will we be doing? Let's go back to the voter turnout of 2022 elections. More than 10 million plus people did not vote. Young people, particularly 8.4 million, didn't turn up to vote. If we fail to strengthen reasons as to why Kenyans go to an election, 2027 might not even attract a 34% voter turnout. Why? Because Kenyans will ask the question, what does my vote mean? And so we are also asking that question. What does waking up early in the morning mean to us? What does it mean to our government in office? Let us exercise our sovereign power, ladies and gentlemen, to push for implementation of Article 35 and Article 38 of the Constitution that gives power to people for universal suffrage on elections. Because failure to exercise that power, the young people of the generation that are following up to Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga will not wake up to go and vote. That means that there may be no elections in 2027. Lastly, cost of living. How many of us have 100 shillings in our pockets? Kenyans are crying. We want food. And it is the responsibility of any government that calls itself a caring government to provide mechanisms, stable environments, and opportunities for people of all cadre, whether elders, young people, persons with disability, the youth, women, children, to find food to eat. Children want to go to school. We are asking the government to exercise its power to make cost of living affordable, achievable for the majority of Kenyans. I thank you so much for listening to me on behalf of the people who sent me here. God bless you, God bless Kenya, and God bless Azimio. Asanteni.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I was not rushing him, but because Kevin has a written memorandum, I'm sure we'll be happy to receive the memorandum and process it, but continue to engage with you and your national network. Now, we have come to the end. Is there a representative of MDD here? Oh, he's here. We were waiting. We said we are going to give you the last loud intervention at this stage because you are on the front line of Mapambano. Karibu ndugu.
Freedom, my people, freedom. Freedom, my people, freedom. You know, my name's Eliud Opan. And as Malcolm X says, by every means necessary. I operate closely with MDD, but I'm the chairman of the Ordinary People's Movement. And I had to take this chance, and for sure you cannot now stop me. During the French Revolution, one Jean said, when the poor will be left with nothing more to eat, they will come for the rich. As the ordinary, we've come this close, I can assure you. And I want to tell you, with Baba being our general, as the ordinary citizens, this is what the ordinary people are saying. We took note when you were told negotiations were commencing. Baba, that very week, Dr. Ruto called you my brother. The second week, his deputy, without chills, called you ordinary. Baba, if you're not going to let us go to the streets as you continue with the negotiations, what will they do the third week? I can tell you, Baba, the ordinary people want to be in the streets because that is the only platform we have a chance to enjoy our rights. And I want to remind everybody, and this is biblical, in Galatians 6:9, for those of us who are in struggle and at times get weary, Galatians 6:9 reminds you, don't be weary of doing good, for in the right time and in due time, if you don't give up, you will assuredly get the reward. God bless you very much, and may God take care of you and part of you as we go through our struggle. Thank you.
Asante sana. Sasa, to finish that, we need to appreciate them with that manyunyu kidogo, eh? So quickly, manyunyu. Moshi. Manyunyu yamekuwa mvua. Mvua hiyo inaongezeka. Nyingi sana. Radi! Asanteni sana. Now, with your kind permission, we are going to request His Excellency Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka to make a few comments and a few observations, because he's going to represent the leadership in a commitment that one of them has to go and attend to. So, Your Excellency.
Thank you. This is not an occasion today for the Buffalo Soldier. We came to listen to our brothers and sisters from the civil society.